So you've been taking pictures with your smartphone or a point and shoot, and you're loving photography. You want to take it to the next level, so you go out and you buy a big fancy camera, a DSLR, or one of the new mirrorless cameras, and you take it out of the box and there's all these buttons and dials and, oh, what are you going to do? So you get on the internet, and the internet tells you in order for you to be a real photographer, you have to take your camera off auto. I don't believe in this philosophy. I think there are 5 things that you should master before you take your camera off auto. Let's do this. Hi, I'm Gene. Welcome to my channel, where I'll be posting videos about photography, tutorials, behind the scenes, interviews, and well, whatever you want. So drop me a comment below. And if photography is something you're into, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. So I'm worried that if you pull your camera out of the box and get too focused on all your manual settings, that you'll spend more time trying to figure out how to use your camera instead of what to point your camera at. So let's pick up your camera and talk about 5 things that I think you should master before you take your camera off auto. So let's talk about why you might not be getting the pictures that you expect from your expensive camera. After all, you spent a lot of money on the camera. Anything you point the camera at, it should be a great photo. So you take the camera down, your kid's swim meet, and your kid's doing the breaststroke and the water's coming up dripping off the goggles, and you go to take the shot and it's all blurry. There are some limitations about what you can photograph while you're on auto, and that is why at some point you're going to want to learn how to use the manual settings. Some of these limitations include taking stop action sports photography or getting water to look like it's flowing over a waterfall in a landscape. You're not going to get those shots when you're on auto mode, and it's important to understand that. Even though you're on auto mode, your camera is still using the same principles that you would use in manual mode to make sure that your picture is properly exposed. There are 3 controls that you have to be mindful of in order to get a well-exposed image. Those 3 things are known as the exposure triangle, which we'll talk about in a future video, but what you should know now is that the amount of light that comes through your lens, the time that your shutter is open when you press the shutter release, and how fast your sensor reacts to the light that you do let into the camera are the 3 things that you have to control in order to have a well-exposed image. This applies whether you're on manual or auto. The difference is when you're in automatic mode, your camera is making those decisions for you. The important thing to remember is that your camera is compensating for all this internally while you're shooting on auto. And so if you're in extremely bright lit situations, if you're in a dark room, if you're trying to shoot some fast action, or if you're trying to get a certain effect when you take a picture of like moving water or something like that, you have to understand that those are outside the limitations of your camera's automatic settings. So don't get me wrong, this video is about staying on auto. So I'm not trying to discourage you from staying on auto, but I want you to understand that there are limitations while you're taking photographs in automatic mode that will limit your ability to get photographs in certain extreme conditions. For example, bright rooms, dark rooms, fast action, things like that. That's the main takeaway for this section. If you can stay away from those extremes, you'll be amazed at the photographs that you can get, and you'll be inspired and motivated to learn more, to dig deeper, and to continue your journey on photography, and that's the goal of this video. Number 2, choosing your subject. But first, I wanted to change into my I Shoot Raw t-shirt, which I got from another longtime mentor of mine, Jared Poland. Jared Poland has posted videos for years helping photographers improve their photography, learn their equipment, and keeps the community informed on photography news. If you follow his channel, I guarantee you'll be inspired and you'll understand why so many people consider photography to be a way of life. His emphasis on storytelling through photography is groundbreaking. Before coronavirus locked down the world, you may remember we were sending our wishes and prayers to our friends in Australia as they were fighting historic wildfires. Just from July of 2019 to January of 2020, 3,000 homes had been destroyed, 17 million acres burned, and over 1 billion animals lost their lives. Now with the world on lockdown, that all seems like a distant memory. But I promised Jared that I would wear his specially designed I Shoot Raw shirt in my first video to highlight the fact that he used his photography and his audience to raise over $17,000 for the Australian Zoo Wildlife Warriors Foundation. I'm very proud of Jared for using his platform to do good, and this is not the first time or the last time that he's done that. You should really check out his channel. This video is not sponsored by Jared, although that would be cool. Wait, Jared? Hello, Jared? Oh, robocall, sorry. So in this section, we're talking about picking your subject. So why am I talking about Jared? Well, in a recent video, he had a challenge that I really enjoyed. I did the challenge myself, and I wanted to share that with you. So Jared's challenge was a 30-minute challenge to sit in one location with your camera and spend time looking at your environment and your surroundings. And this is something that we don't do a lot of. I teach photography workshops, and one of the things that I always try to remind people is don't forget to look down, don't forget to look up, and don't just scan around. Take the time to stop, look around, and see what's there, see what's in your environment. So during this 30-minute challenge, I want you to sit down, point your camera at something, and just take pictures. And remember, a subject doesn't always have to be a person or a thing. It can also be shapes, color, concepts. It's a really fun challenge. Here's a couple of photographs that I took when I did the 30-minute challenge. One of my favorite tips about photographing subjects is don't forget to take the candid shots. When I'm out doing a photo session for families or seniors, I always warn my clients, I'm gonna take pictures in between the poses. So don't be surprised if as you're walking around helping each other with your clothes and being a family and interacting with each other, I'm gonna capture those moments too. You really wanna take great pictures of your teenager, take their picture when they least expect it. You won't be disappointed. The third thing you should master while you're still on auto is the use of color. One of the things that I wish I spent more time learning about when I was getting started in photography was the color wheel and how the color wheel works. This is a color wheel, right there, sorry. That is a color wheel. You can also go to color.adobe.com, and there you'll find a color wheel that's very interactive that you can use to help decide which colors you think will work well together. So this is a very complicated subject and we can talk forever about it, but one of the challenges that I wanted to give you while you're still shooting on auto is as you're looking at subjects, think of ways that you can use color to help the subject stand out. So what's really important to understand about the color wheel is that all of these colors have a certain relationship with each other. So in other words, complementary colors are on opposite ends of the color wheel. This is why you see in a lot of movies and a lot of pictures on Instagram now, you see a lot of the orange and teal look because the skin tones tend to be orange, which is right here on the color wheel, and the blue-green and teal color are on the opposite side of the color wheel. So if you're taking portraits of your family, be mindful of the clothing that they're wearing. Make sure they don't blend into the background. Find clothes that actually contrast with the background by using the complementary colors on the color wheel. Another thing that you can do is understand analogous colors. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. This can sometimes create a very harmonious photograph when you take pictures of things that are similar in color. So the point is, while you're taking pictures on auto, be mindful of color. Find ways to use color to make sure that your subject pops out of the picture, or that you can use color to bring the viewer into your photograph, lead them into the photograph, and help tell the story. And that brings me to number 4, storytelling. So I've mentioned 2 great photographers in this video so far, Frank Ruggles and Jared Pullen. One of the things that Frank has always instilled in me is that each photograph should have a story behind it. And Jared reminds us often that photographs are a great way to tell a compelling story. So keep this in mind as you're taking your pictures. A photograph of a person leads you to ask, who's the person? A photograph of a person walking leads you to ask, who's the person and where are they going? But a photograph of somebody trudging through a few feet of snow in a blizzard, well, now you've got a whole bunch of questions. Who is this person? Where is he going? Why is he out in the snow? Is his family worried about him? Is he gonna survive? And as a storyteller, through photography, you can choose to leave the answers to these questions to the imagination of the viewer, creating a lot of mystery, or you can put visual clues. For example, some taillights shining out from behind the snow, implying that maybe somebody was in a car accident or something like that. That sounded kind of morbid. But anyway, that's one way that you can go about telling a story. As you're taking photographs, look for different elements of what you're photographing that will cause the viewer to ask questions about the photograph, and decide whether you want to answer those questions or if you just want to leave it open-ended. Number 5, composition. This is a massive subject. There are entire master classes on composition. Don't get worried, don't be scared. I'm not going to dive deep into it, but there's really just 3 things about composition that I want you to keep in mind while you're practicing taking photographs. 1, always remember to have your subject a little bit off center, kind of like I am right now in this frame. It would be a lot more boring if I was just right here in the middle of the frame. Okay, that's not as exciting. But I've offset myself here a little bit, and I'm facing the center of the frame. This means that as I'm looking, let's say that this was a portrait of me looking, you've created this space in the photograph that gives me room to look. If you take a picture of me looking off in this direction and there's really nothing behind me, then it's a little disruptive to the viewer. It's not as aesthetically pleasing. There's a lot of psychology involved in this. It's been studied. Remembering to off-center your subject a little bit is a great way to enhance your photography, and definitely something that I want you to try. The other thing is, I do want you to try to understand the rule of thirds. So if you were to take, and I'm going to try to do this here in the video, if you take and draw 2 lines here, and then you take and you draw 2 lines in this direction, okay, you've done several things. You've broken this into 3 different sections. You've created these 4 intersecting points. Now, as you're taking your photograph and you're trying to figure out how to balance the subject, let's say you're taking a landscape photograph. If you have water in the foreground and mountains in the middle and sky in the background, that's a well-balanced photograph where you've utilized the rule of thirds. Now, it may be that you want to put water in the first and second third and put the landscape in the top. That's also okay. When you're taking pictures of things or people, try to put them where the lines intersect. That helps you off-center your subject. If they're looking up, put them in the bottom corner. If they're looking down, put them in the top corner. So you get kind of like this or versus this. Know what I mean? Okay. The reason you really want to master composition in your photography is because you want to take a viewer on a journey. You want to guide them through your photograph. A lot of people, when they're first starting out in photography, ask, well, how the heck am I supposed to do that? It's a flat piece of paper with a picture on it. How am I supposed to take somebody into the photograph, okay? Well, when you look at a photograph, what are your eyes drawn to first? Then where do they go next? And what's taking them from point A to point B in the photograph? One of the best ways to do this is through leading lines. Leading lines can be anything from the shoreline of a river, it can be a bench, it can be a sidewalk, it can be a row of buildings. So there's several different ways that you can use leading lines to guide someone into your photograph. And the really great compositions involve a payoff at the end of those leading lines. So the photograph itself may be just an image of an outdoor park or something, and you may have some curved benches or something with leading lines, and then at the end of those leading lines, there's something unique in the photograph, and that could be the subject of your photo. But you've led the viewer through the photograph to get them there, and that's great composition. So to recap very quickly, I don't want you to be in such a rush to learn all the manual settings of your camera. I wanted to come up with just 5 things that you should master before you take your camera off auto, so that you can be inspired, so that you can be creative, so that you can go out there and take great photographs and not get discouraged because your camera's not taking the pictures that you thought it should be taking. So number one, understand the limitations of your camera. The second thing is choosing your subject. I want you to take that 30-minute challenge. You will really be surprised at how many things you can come up with to take a picture of. Using color. Color can help enhance your photograph. It can help your subject pop. It can help bring harmony to an image. Number four, storytelling. Remember that a great photograph has a story behind it and it tells a story. Composition. This can really take a boring photograph and turn it into a stunning image. I really enjoyed sharing these ideas with you. Stay on auto for a little bit. Don't let the internet intimidate you into diving into your manual settings too quickly. Have fun exploring photography. Have fun finding the art of photography. And remember that you are the artist behind the lens. And don't forget to discover, create, and share. I'll see you in the next video.